Welcome back to the Real Texas Radio podcast. Yes, I am back again so soon with another episode. No, I am not going to be talking about the Oaklawn Church, which will be allowed to keep its rainbow-colored steps because I don't really care that much, and I don't think that most people do either. Instead, I am going to be talking about the big news starting off the week. AT&T headquarters has officially announced, sorta announced that it is going to be deprecating its downtown Dallas headquarters. And I am going to wrap up today's show with a quote-unquote person of interest who just can't keep herself out of the news. That's right, the Grinch of District 13. She just can't stop talking about that viral TikTok house. And before we jump in, please make sure that you like, subscribe, follow the Real Texas Radio Podcast from wherever you are streaming, and follow the show on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. All right, now, you're listening to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Bronin, just a fed-up taxpayer, bringing you all of your Texas, local, and national news. Boy, it's hard being a local podcaster when you got to compete with the likes of Donald Trump plucking dictators out of their bedrooms in the middle of the night over the weekend, over the first weekend of the year in 2026.
Everybody's always blaming me for everything.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it local. The big news here in Texas on Monday, I think, is that AT&T, they finally almost kinda had the stones to announce that they will be building a brand new campus in Plano, Texas, just to the north of Dallas, for those of you who aren't as familiar with your Texas geography. Speculation around AT&T's headquarters leaving downtown Dallas has been rampant for months, even after just a few years ago, right beside the headquarters, the AT&T Discovery Zone opened, which is actually a beautiful addition to downtown Dallas. It pedestrianized a formerly vehicular street, and apparently the cost of that was like $100 million. And there's a food hall, there are restaurants, there's a huge flat screen TV on the side of one of AT&T's buildings on that campus. And you know what else there is down in the Discovery Zone, right smack dab in the middle of downtown Dallas? A designated security team. And I don't know who pays for that security team, if it's AT&T or if it's the city of Dallas, meaning the taxpayers, or if it's a mix. But I have a feeling that if AT&T is footing the bill to have full-time security at the Discovery Zone, they're probably sick of that, even if they're looking at it as a measly, pesky item in their large budget. And the interesting thing is, AT&T, they didn't say we're leaving Dallas. They didn't announce that. They didn't say we're quitting Dallas. It's really like quiet quitting, or it's like a passive-aggressive breakup. And they've announced that they're going to be opening in Plano, Legacy, West. They're going to be consolidating some of their sites from around the DFW area, that they'll be moving people from Irving. I imagine that many of the employees who are currently based in downtown Dallas, they'll be moving on to Plano. Certainly, if they live along the tollway, or even if they live along I-75, they'll be moving up to that campus. It's not supposed to open for 2 or 3 years. It's 2028. That's what I'm seeing in the reports. But now Dallas has to reckon with the property tax fallout that may accompany, that is expected to accompany this relocation or this quitting of AT&T headquarters in downtown Dallas. Just like Dallas is also facing the possibility of Neiman Marcus, which has been downtown Dallas for over 100 years, vacating that store, vacating its flagship, and they'll likely remain at North Park Center. And, Saks bought Neiman Marcus. They are filing bankruptcy again, I guess. I don't know. I don't keep up too much with that company, but I think their CEO, longtime CEO, over like 30 years, is stepping down. I think they had some office space at City Place. I don't know why. I think they're out of those offices as well. And Neiman Marcus, for their part, they did try to turn around the flagship. They opened the Zodiac Room Cafe, which I think was very flashy, and I think it's hard to get a table in there, I've heard. I haven't been in myself. So it'd be sad for Neiman Marcus to go, and perhaps you can't entirely blame the city of Dallas management or city council for that. It's the way that a lot of cities, the urban centers, are going. But it's a shame. And, the Wall Street Journal, they published an article on the state of the city of Dallas at the end of December, and it was really spot on. And you know what certainly caught my eye? Mentioned 3 times in that article, which I tweeted out, by the way, on X at @RTR_Bronin, @RTR_Bronin. But the Wall Street Journal, they pointed out crime and homelessness downtown. But of course, I repeat myself because homelessness is just a synonym for crime. And, the city manager and DPD and all of the other officials and city councilors, they can talk a big game about working toward eliminating crime and homelessness. Again, it's the same thing downtown. And, you can point to all of these successes of downtown Dallas over the last decade or 15 years. And there are certainly many to tout. The Discovery Zone, like I already mentioned, that was a wonderful addition to downtown. I would also point out, and many would agree, that Clyde Warren Park is one of the biggest new success stories of downtown Dallas. But of course, if you look at a map and you see where Clyde Warren is, that's really like the beginning, or almost like the opening, depending on what direction you're looking at, to Uptown, which is growing. That's where the new buildings, the new towers are going up. And there are also a number of parks that have opened in downtown Dallas. I think I saw the park acreage has increased to maybe like 20 acres of park, up from single digits over a decade ago. But do you know what separates the regular city parks, even if they're new, that have opened up in the last few years, from the Discovery Zone and from Clyde Warren Park? Do you know the reason why Clyde Warren Park is a massive attraction for families, for kids, for tourists? They have a dedicated security team at both of those locations. The only reason why anybody would spend time at Clyde Warren Park, would sit down at one of the tables and enjoy food from one of the food trucks, or why you would let your kids play in the park, in the toys, or in the jungle gym that's been erected there at Clyde Warren, or why you would stand in the middle of the AT&T Discovery Zone for 5 minutes. The only reason you do that is because there are dedicated security teams at both sites. If you thought that you were going to go read a book at one of the ordinary parks that have opened up, and quite a few of them have opened up downtown, you would be harassed, panhandled, you would be leered at by an unpredictable, menacing, recidivist, reprobate psychopath. It would be very uncomfortable. You just wouldn't. And it's immutable. I don't know how you can ignore that. And AT&T, they certainly haven't. They haven't come out and said, "Oh, we're leaving because of crime and homelessness." They're not going to say that. They're not going to say that because they'd be accused of bigotry and racism, and they'd be accused of being mean. And so, yeah, of course, they're not going to say that.
Shut up. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points?
Hey, I think I'm just calling it like I see it. And while we're on the subject of Plano, that's I think the number 2 city in terms of, or maybe Irving has more light rail stops on the DART than does Plano. But Plano is just a few months away from their May election where they will be asking voters if they want to remain a part of DART.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell.
And it remains to be seen if that's the case. Plano, they're looking at the tens of millions or that $100 million that they spent in 2025 or 2024 being a member of DART, and just watching the DART funnel all of these homeless, junkie bum, criminal vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist reprobates from Dallas, all over the Metroplex, but mostly from Dallas, and just funnel them up to downtown Plano and beyond. And Plano, the city leaders, the city council, they decided, you know what, I think we've had enough of this. I think that it feels like a slap in the face that these DART executives are doling out these bonuses to the tune of millions of dollars to themselves while we're looking at these homeless, junkie bum, criminal vagrant, mental patients. And just to give you an idea how much AT&T values DART and being public transit accessible, they're going to be opening up their new campus on the west side of Plano. The DART light rail runs through the east side of Plano. And I think there are some buses that run over to Legacy West. So, for example, you could take the DART light rail up into Plano, either downtown or there's a stop beyond, one stop beyond where buses will reach. And then maybe you could get a bus across town over to Legacy West. But how many people who work at AT&T are going to be doing that? I don't think so. And then again, do you really want to be waiting around a DART light rail station for any amount of time? And it's not like it's not like the bus schedule is reliable. You plug into your phone, you plug into Google Maps. I'm trying to get over to Plano Legacy West. How long is that going to take waiting for the bus? It'll tell you 10 minutes. It could be 23 minutes, could be 18 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be 45 minutes. You have no idea because they haven't figured out, even though the technology has existed for about 20 years, DART doesn't want to provide their customers with real-time updates as to when the train or the bus is coming. They, on all of the bus stops, they have a number that you can text, and you're supposed to be able to see when the bus is coming. And then you text the number, and then it says again, oh, coming 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 12 minutes, and then the bus doesn't show up when it's supposed to. How are you supposed to rely on that? How are you supposed to rely on that to get to work? Tell me. Or anywhere. How are you supposed to rely on that to get to a doctor's appointment or any of the other potentially practical reasons why you might want to take public transit? And you know what? I'm pro public transit, as if you've been a listener to this show. I want to be supportive of public transit. I don't think that typical ordinary Americans should have to go out and buy a $50,000 plus pickup truck or SUV just to commute to work and have that vehicle sit in a parking lot for 23 hours a day or 22 hours a day, and then the other hour of the day that it's on the road, it's sitting in traffic. I don't think that that's a good situation for anybody. I think that we should have a public transit option. And going back to Donald Trump, who was able to use the United States military in order to pluck a dictator out of his bed in the middle of the night and keep that secret from everybody until after it happened. We're able to do that, but we are not able to rid our cities of homeless, junkie, bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist reprobates who are just lice and fleas on society. Dallas, again, you can open parks, you can expand Clyde Warren, you can have an AT&T Discovery Zone, you can renovate buildings, you can renovate sidewalks, you can do all of that. But guess what? It's just like if you remodel your house and then you invite untrained animals and goats and pit bulls and cats into the house. It's not going to look remodeled for very long. You're not going to be attracting many guests if the whole place stinks. These bums are still everywhere. Look at the Greyhound station. That's moved, I think, over to Harry Hines. Harry Hines, another real bright spot in Dallas's geography. But that moved out of downtown. And I know that the company has changed hands. It's got foreign owners. It's a real estate play. These Greyhound stations, they usually have huge prized real estate. But have you ever driven by the Greyhound station in downtown Dallas, which is right next to a McDonald's? I mean, talk about having all of the homeless, junkie, bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient amenities. Or the West End. Have you ever spent any time down the West End? Believe me, if you've been on foot going through the West End, you pick up your step. You really put a spring in your step if you've had the misfortune of having to go by any of those areas. I just don't understand. Well, I do understand why our cities, they would rather let the status quo, let these homeless, feckless, society-killing, downtown-killing bums, they'd rather just let them run amok and pretend that they're doing all they can for them, for the dregs of society, and let AT&T, Fortune 500 company, just quietly quit, just slip away. They would rather that. Are you telling me that if Dallas announced 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever, if they said, we are not allowing homeless people to terrorize our city, and we are not opening shelters for them, we do not welcome them, we do not condone their behavior, we have tried everything with this group, and they just refuse help. And they refuse help maybe because they're a mental case, maybe because of drugs, probably both, probably the drugs, which led to the mental case. We don't care. And you know what? Our police, they can arrest, but that's all they can do. What are you going to just arrest somebody for just being a nuisance in the park and then move them over to the jail? And then you have the DA through his minions just release them, or the judges who don't show up to work just release them. And while we're on the subject of Dart, this is the Dart. You see the dartboard Vice President Randall Bryant. He represents Dallas. This was him on a podcast several months ago. This is what he thinks about crime related to Dart.
There's crime here. Well, hell. I just saw a deal in Deep Ellum, right? That was a multiple shooting. So, let's not act like crime doesn't happen all over this region, right? And if crime is something we want to address, then we have to figure out all that Deep Ellum crime came.
You know what? Crime happens everywhere. You know what? Do you want to be sitting in a confined area with a criminal who is either maybe going to shoot you, which has happened 3 times in the last several months on DART light rail cars in Dallas, either downtown or nearby? Or do you want to sit next to somebody who is throwing an absolute nutter, which I have experienced myself, and which many people I know who have been on the DART light rail, they have experienced a homeless, junkie bum, criminal vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist, reprobate on serious drugs, could be meth, could be crack, screaming bloody murder. You want to just sit there and think to yourself, oh, well, crime happens everywhere. I'll just sit here for the next 25 minutes next to this psychopath, because it could happen anywhere. I don't think so. And so another thing that we're going to just let go to the dogs, let go to the criminals. There are, at least 5, maybe 6. The numbers are growing all the time. DART member cities, Garland now is in the mix, Irving, Highland Park, University Park. Okay, you could argue they don't really count. They got a couple of buses. But they want to leave DART. They're sick of giving money to this. And DART and Dallas, but particularly DART, but the city of Dallas has the greatest control over DART. They've got the most board seats. Again, they would rather let homeless, junkie bum, criminal vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-wells destroy the whole system than actually do something about it. And it's just so infuriating. Again, we can pluck a dictator out of his bed in the middle of the night in a secret operation where almost no civilian casualties occur, but we can't fix homelessness. You could fix it in 5 minutes if you opened up Crack Island. You'd fix it in 5 minutes. You get a big net and drop it down in the middle of the West End and scoop them all up and drop them on Crack Island. All of them, and never look back. You can drop in food and water, and that's it. And they can do whatever the hell they want, which is what they do now. But no, you'd rather let Dallas downtown be Crack Island, and just keep pumping more money into the city. Keep rehabbing buildings. You're going to open a brand new convention center, and you think that's going to fix it? That the bums are going to make short shrift of that. I can tell you that they'll make short shrift of anything new that's opened up unless you want to get serious about it. In any case, I don't care how many cities threaten. I think that DART is going to be hanging around. It's certainly going to be hanging around in Dallas. We got 3 different trains that go to DFW Airport, and 2 of them are DART. One of them is TRE, maybe whatever they've got out in Fort Worth. We have 3 different trains that run into 2 different terminals at DFW Airport. You know how rare that is to have light rail or any kind of a train, public transit that run directly into a major airport? It's LaGuardia Airport in New York. No. And Boston Logan Airport, no. Austin, no. I don't know about Houston, actually. I mean, and usually when they say, oh, we go to the airport, they'll have an airport stop, but you still have to get a shuttle. DART actually runs right into the terminal. So I don't see that going away. But you know what? Hey, I've said it many times before. I'm not great at predictions, but I'm going to predict that some of these cities, they may end up backing out and canceling these elections. Like the Plano mayor, he's already made comments to that effect on Inside Texas Politics. He said, it sounds to me like they're using this election as negotiating leverage with DART. And we'll see. Otherwise, they claim they're going to break off and do their own thing. They're going to have their own public transit. Plano, city of fewer than 300,000. They're going to just create their own public transit separate from DART, which they already have. But DART, they're not a good negotiating partner, from what I hear. But I think we're not going to be getting rid of DART.
That's ridiculous. That would be ridiculous, right? After 50 years, please.
Well, I don't think it's been quite 50 years, but I think it first opened in the 80s, the light rail, and maybe more people used it then. All right, I'm going to move on to another topic, and I can't even believe that I have to talk about this again. I don't have to talk about it again, but I am going to talk about it again. The Grinch developer, donor, darling, Gay Danelle Willis, the councilwoman from District 13, she's kind of in the news again. I mean, I guess if you're really into local Dallas news, then she's in the news again. But a gentleman by the name of Scott Goldstein, he publishes a newsletter, and he's on the park board, and his newsletter is pretty good. I can give him credit. But he is now publishing I don't even know what you call this, but an interview series, I guess he's billing it as, titled People of Interest. And who does he select for his inaugural piece but none other than the Grinch, Gay Danelle Willis.
Physically, she's not my type, and now that I've gotten indirectly to hear things about her, she wouldn't be my type in any way, shape, or form.
And the subject of the interview is the Deloche Avenue Christmas viral TikTok house. Now, you know what? If I were her, I would probably just stop talking about this. I think she's spoken enough between public comment at meetings, between media last year, the leaked voicemail, social media comments. It's ridiculous how much attention this one house has gotten. And you know what? According to Scott Goldstein, the author here of this series, People of Interest, he said that he emailed these questions to her, to the councilwoman. Now, he's not a journalist, but I am just going to point out that a lot of real journalists, they would say that's not good practice to conduct an interview, quote-unquote interview, via email. You really get the person on the phone, get the person on Zoom. Obviously, in person is the best way, but I know that can be difficult. But at least you try to get them on Zoom or something.
You can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming.
So it looks like, I'm always suspicious now that AI is writing everything, or it looks like maybe she just pawned off this Q&A to a member of her staff. It looks like just mostly recycled comments from what she's already told the public and written in her own social media comments. So, for example, here's one of the questions. Give us the latest on what's been happening on Deloche Avenue these past few weeks, including what you're hearing from area residents. And I'm not going to read you the whole answer, but this nugget made it into the response. With viral social media promotion, this could happen in any neighborhood. This, meaning Christmas lights. A rich person goes all out for decorating their house for Christmas. It is extraordinary in terms of thousands of people coming to the middle of a block, trespassing through yards. Deloche does not have sidewalks. We've noticed. How come you don't have sidewalks? How come the residents of Preston Hollow, the swells, how come they're not demanding sidewalks? It's just the poors down south of I-30 who want sidewalks. Leaving litter behind, dirty diapers, pizza boxes, beer cans, etc. Berating neighbors who are asking to have their driveways cleared so they could enter or exit their own property. Nobody wants this. Yeah, you're right. No, nobody does want this. Nobody wants trash strewn all over their neighborhood. Diapers, allegedly diapers, pizza boxes, beer cans. You know who are responsible for a large percentage of the trash that's strewn about all over Dallas, all over the city, every council district? You know who's the biggest purveyor of litter? homeless, junkie bum, criminal vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist reprobates that the city wants to do little to nothing about. And then there were some other interesting questions here. Actually, this was the last one. You have been personally attacked by a handful of keyboard warriors in recent weeks. What do you say to those who have accused you of Grinch-like behavior?
Oh, there have been a variety of opinions on this, but I'm confident that a large majority of residents in and around the neighborhood have appreciated my efforts to find a solution to this.
Yeah, to this non-problem. And you know what? The results of the survey on extraordinary neighborhood events are out. And guess what? Over 80% of people reported in the survey. Over 80% of respondents said that lighting in their neighborhood is not a problem. Christmas lights are not a problem. So that was a big bust. And you know what, Scott? I guess you didn't really have a whole lot of curiosity, although he did mention it in one of the questions, or Gay Janelle Willis mentioned it in one of her answers, about blocking pedestrians. There are no qualms about blocking pedestrians from walking down a taxpayer publicly maintained street. Again, I can understand the cars. I don't condone illegal parking. But First Amendment, anybody? No, not interested in that, I guess. Okay, that's my rant for today. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, follow, download those episodes, and follow me on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. I will catch you on the next episode.